So good news, Hyundai has hit a complete and utter home run into the EV world, which brings us to maybe not the bad news, but a bit of a question. Do they take the DNA from this very successful but also very expensive vehicle and apply it to the vehicles that they sell in volume, which frankly pay the freight for the entire company? Okay, so when we say DNA from this into the vehicles that pay the freight, that would be some electrification in crossovers. In this case, the Santa Fe, which is their larger of their two-row crossovers. There, we drove it already, 2.5 four-cylinder. It's about 191 horsepower, 181 pound-feet of torque. Well, with electrification, it's on offer in two different flavors. There's a regular hybrid, and then there's a plug-in hybrid. They start with a 1.6 four-cylinder turbo engine in either one, and then it's 178 horsepower and 195 pound-feet of torque. However, in the hybrid, it adds an electric motor that's 44.2 kilowatts. That's what, 60 horsepower. In the plug-in hybrid, it's 66.9 kilowatts. That's about 90 horsepower. So total system torque in the hybrid is 195. In the plug-in hybrid, it's 224. Then total system horsepower, that changes between the two. That's either 226 or 261 in the one we're driving today, the plug-in hybrid. Now, something interesting about the system, it borrows a page out of the 48-volt system that's in the Mercedes mild hybrid system. No, this one is not a mild hybrid, but it does have a hybrid integrated starter generator motor instead of a generator and a separate starter somewhere else on the engine. So the idea is it handles more load and it could be more reliable over many more cycles. Then there's the battery. In the hybrid, it's a whopping 1.49 kilowatt hours. In the plug-in hybrid we're driving today, it's, well, not that much more, 13.8 kilowatt hours, which translates to a full electric driving range of 30 miles. In terms of MPG, on the hybrid, it's 33, 30, 32 combined. In the plug-in hybrid, it's 33 combined and 76 MPGE. After a 3-year hiatus, it is wonderful to be back in Middle Tennessee. This time with a plug-in hybrid that weighs 4,515 pounds, or depending on express your weights and measures, 2,048 kilograms. If this was the non-fancy, non-limited, it would be about 200 pounds less with that. A little bit of a delay there. I will say there's not as much of a delta between the gas and the hybrid and plug-in hybrid as there is in the Tucson with the different variations. And that is a big function of the size and weight we're dealing with here. Because effectively, these are A, the same propulsion system, and B, it is effectively the same platform. The wheelbase is the same on both vehicles, 108.9 inches. It's the length that changes. This one is a full 6 inches longer than the Tucson. In terms of the integration of the real geared transmission, which for the avoidance of doubt, we usually don't see that in these types of equations. A parallel plug-in hybrid, usually we see a CVT. So what that does, it provides a bit of an engineering challenge because you are literally adding more moving parts, those 6 forward gears. So one would think the handoff between the gas engine and the electric motor would be kind of clunky. Here, let's say for the sake of discussion, let's do a simulated pass. Drop the hammer, and I wouldn't call it seamless, but it makes the vehicle feel like it's a bigger engine. And that in turn translates to different power delivery. Now, yes, there is somewhat of a difference between this and the gasoline version of the same car. It's more immediate, it feels more connected. Basically, this is a more cohesive solution than the gasoline car. And I hate to say this, but the basic version of this, I would argue it's 2 different vehicles. Yeah, same platform, same overall execution, but the change of the propulsion system transforms the vehicle to the point where I don't think Hyundai and Kia really need to offer the regular ICE without either the plug-in or the regular hybrid. Yes, it is indeed that time again to play your favorite game, Mind the Options game, with today's contestant, a very fancy Hyundai baby buggy that is not the largest and doesn't have the most seats, but it does have some electrification. This one, the 2022 Hyundai Santa Fe Limited plug-in hybrid for a base price of $46,010. Now, I do feel it prudent to point out if this were the SEL, it has less stuff in it, it would have a base price of $40,000. So what does one get for an extra $6,000? Well, it's the leather interior, the driver's seat has more adjustments like the length of the seat changes, that's a very nice touch. Heated, cooled seats, a better stereo. Basically, it's a more fancy vehicle, has fancier wheels. Although this one, I had a choice between gray and silver, both not great. The silver was the less ugly of the two, but at least we don't have to pay extra for it. Now, if you've played a Hyundai or Kia round of this game with me before, you know the drill here. There aren't factory options, just different levels, and this being the highest level, there aren't other items we can write a check for. Actually, there is one thing. It is the destination and handling from Ulsan, Korea for $1,245, which brings us to a total retail price of $47,255. Yes, the most expensive two-row crossover Hyundai makes. As a point of reference, there's the calligraphy model, which has all the stuff we have today. Granted, it's a little bit fancier and has the 2.5 turbo engine on offer, front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. The all-wheel drive there is like $3,000 cheaper. It's $43,110 as a base price. So while you and I ran back to the hangar to do the options game, the sky here in Middle Tennessee absolutely open, which means we should probably slow down and talk about driving dynamics. Now first, a recap of what's underneath the vehicle, and there are surprise of surprises. Nothing really exotic. McPherson struts up front, multi-link in the back. Now, what we got to really focus on is what is the vehicle made of, and there it's a Hyundai, which means a lot of high-strength steel, which lowers the weight of the vehicle. Now, I know we discussed 4,500 pounds doesn't sound very light, but think it's two propulsion systems, a plug-in at that. So obviously, the high-strength steel is working to lower the mass of the vehicle, which works in conjunction with the multi-link in the back, and that delivers a relatively good ride quality. Like here, the wind is absolutely disturbing a tall vehicle. I don't really feel it as much. Overall, on the freeway, it does deliver, I'd say, a better than a Hyundai ride quality. I wouldn't go so far as to saying that it's like a luxury car like the Ioniq 5. And for the avoidance of doubt, when I say better, I mean more supple. Then there are the brakes, 12.8-inch diameter rotors in the front, 12-inch diameter rotors in the rear. Nothing really to write home about, but this is where you see a marked difference between this and the Tucson. The extra weight here, there's something left to be desired in terms of really hard braking. So like panic stop situations, you notice not so much composure over the ass end of the vehicle under braking. Now in terms of steering, it's a Hyundai. Like I wouldn't expect this to have like the feedback and the weight of a sports car, but believe it or not, there actually is some feel to it. There is some weight to it that one wouldn't expect, and I don't know if that's something that's been tuned in or the extra weight of the propulsion system. And now for something completely different, a crazy slow 3.6 kilowatt onboard charger. When I first saw the specs, I'm like, that's got to be a typo. So when I got here to Nashville, I went and got Trevor L. You may remember him. He was the product manager on the Kona, and he's the guy responsible for not giving us a sunroof here in the US on that vehicle. Well, he's also the product manager for this vehicle. I'm like, hey man, this is the same platform and the same propulsion system as the Tucson, and the onboard charger with that is like more than double the speed. What's going on? Well, it turns out this, yes, a two-row in the US. In other markets, it's a three-row. So to make enough room to package a third seat in a very small third row, it takes away from the ability to package a faster onboard charger. Or so I'm told. I don't quite understand why it's an either or. Something tells me this is a weak point for the Santa Fe version and the plug-in hybrid. I would argue that's something that really needs to be changed. Okay, so back to the original question. Does it make sense to take electrification and put it into the vehicles that people actually buy from Hyundai? And there I'd say an unequivocal yes. And not because I'm a huge EV proponent. I love EVs, but But as you know, I'm not a huge fan of governments forcing it down our throat, at least the timeline. This is more of a situation that the 2.5 Ford, the regular gasoline model, it's not a great engine, which means it's not a great package in that vehicle, where this, the combination of the 1.6T, which is a much better engine with the electrification and the 30 miles of driving, makes this a very usable package in today's world and today's infrastructure. So really that brings us to the wish list. And the only thing I have to say here is, how about dropping the 2.5 and then applying economies of scale to the plug-in and making it not $46,000 or not even $40,000. I'd say somewhere like mid-30s or less. But I am just one man, and this is the point of the episode where I turn this around to you guys to opine in the comments below or via our social media, MotoManTV all word, MotoManTV all word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And with that, I do want to leave you with an interesting fun fact about the shooting of this episode. You may have noticed we shot a bit in Nashville as well as a bit here back in the California Republic. But while I was in Nashville, I had the opportunity to catch up with a fellow World Car juror, Ken Pantone, and he and I, when we were not driving the Santa Fe, we were driving this car. Well, not this exact one, but one looks just like it. And we felt kind of guilty because like, oh my God, this is so much better than the Santa Fe. But we had to remind ourselves, it's also like 15 grand more. Till I see you in the next episode, bis später.